Ever since our Grapevine Farms Halloween special ended with us capturing some very creepy evidence in the wine cellar while we slept, we've had a lot of people ask us how we can sleep in places that we know are haunted. We'll talk about how we approach that and a lot more in this installment of Behind the Evidence. For many of our investigations, we end up spending the night in the very places or areas or rooms in which we're investigating. We did this at the Hotel Utica, the Hotel Broad Alban, and we've done it a couple of times at the Worcester Inn and Grapevine Farms. One of the reasons we started doing this was, quite simply, it was the only way to investigate some places. Access is always a challenging, whether for scheduling or financial reasons. You simply cannot get full access to some locations, so we would often do research on a hotel, find out what the most haunted room was, and just rent that room. We'd check in, investigate, and then go to sleep in the very room we were investigating. Call it economical paranormal investigating.
Hey guys, I'm back. I left you some scotch earlier, but now I've left you some whiskey. Maybe scotch isn't your thing. I'm more of a scotch person myself. I also left you some playing cards there. And, if you want to show me you're here, do you like the whiskey better or the scotch? If I came back sometime, what drink would you like me to bring you? Reach out and grab it anytime you want.
How did the shots make you feel?
Delightful.
Sounded like a laugh.
As we evolved, we got more and better access to certain locations. The next few times we went to the Worcester Inn, we got our choice of what haunted room we wanted to sleep in. At Grapevine Farms, they actually set up a bed in David's room for Emily to sleep in. And later, we would bring our own mattress to spend the night in the wine cellar. So what were we hoping to accomplish with this? Well, in a hotel, it's pretty simple. On a normal night, people rent the room, check in, spend time in the room, and go to sleep. It's part of the routine that the spirits witness every single day. So in that sense, it becomes a really important part of investigating a very haunted hotel room. In that way, we mimic the normal night that that spirit sees in that room every single night, with recorders and cameras rolling. In a place like Grapevine Farms, we do it for the opposite reasons. People do not normally spend the night there. It's a store and a bistro. So when we spend the night in a haunted section of the building, what we're doing is creating a situation and an atmosphere that the spirits are not used to. In doing this, we hope to create a different situation and bring on a reaction and capture evidence. We often find that in these situations where spirits aren't used to people sleeping is where we get the most activity. But there is one question that we get all the time. We get this question a lot. And the simple answer is that we're kinda used to being in haunted areas, so it doesn't affect us that much. The complicated answer is, well, a little more in depth. First of all, we're pretty tired. Paranormal investigating is exhausting. And it isn't so much that we investigate into the early hours of the morning, it's more about the toll that investigating takes on your body and on your mind. When you investigate, your senses are on full alert the entire time. And when your body and your mind is on overdrive and you're trying to hear everything you can hear and see everything you can see, it takes its toll. In previous videos, you may have heard me mention the paranormal hangover. This is a real thing. Anyone who investigates the paranormal knows exactly what I'm talking about. It is such a draining experience to investigate the paranormal that you often feel it for several days after the investigation is over. So understanding that, it isn't such a far leap to understand that when we're done investigating, we might be tired enough to fall asleep anywhere. Of course, everybody is different, even Emily and I. Emily can fall asleep anywhere. It is easier for her to clear her mind and focus on sleeping, and it doesn't matter where she is, doesn't matter how loud it is, doesn't matter how bright it is. Emily can do that. I cannot. My mind gets going, and after an investigation, I am so amped up, and my senses don't come out of that overdrive setting very easily. So when I'm trying to sleep after an investigation in a haunted area, my mind and body are still investigating. I'm trying to hear everything. I'm trying to listen for everything. So I don't as much sleep as I occasionally nod off for 10 or 15 minutes at a time until the sun comes up. And finally, it really doesn't bother either of us because if you do this long enough, you come to understand that there are spirits around you all the time, whether you're in a haunted location or not. So that can be unsettling to some people, I understand, but after a while you come to accept it, and we've seen enough to understand that that's a very real thing. So sleeping in a haunted location doesn't bother us that much because we've seen enough to know that we're always kind of being watched. I get creeped out more when I watch the evidence. When I'm watching the evidence while we're sleeping and we catch like a really creepy EVP, like some of the stuff from the wine cellar that we'll show you here in a second, I think to myself, man, did I really sleep in that room? Oh my goodness. It's probably best that we can't hear most of the evidence, especially when we capture stuff like this. Another memorable moment while we were sleeping in a haunted room was the first night we spent in room 307 at the Worcester Inn, which is known as the ghost room. And as we were both trying to go to sleep after we investigated, we both felt someone sit on the foot of the bed. You could feel the bed compress, and you could feel it. That's an unmistakable sensation that somebody is sitting on the foot of the bed. But there wasn't anybody there, and I was very hopeful that the camera would capture the bed compressing or some kind of sound or some kind of EVP. Unfortunately, the camera did not pick any of that up, but it was a very interesting experience. And then there are times when you hear something, or you think you see something, or you think you feel something that you think might be paranormal. But the entire idea of sleeping in a haunted area is to let whatever is going to happen around you or to you happen. And so you don't want to interfere with it. So when I think something's going on around us, I just listen the best that I can, try to see the best that I can, and hope the camera or the recorders pick up whatever it is that I think I'm hearing or I think I'm seeing. Because in the end, the reason you're sleeping there is so that you can be bait. And so it's best to just embrace it. It's best to just embrace that idea and realize that it's all part of the investigation. Oh yeah, it happens. Now, whether the things that wake you up are your mind just hearing things because you know you're in a haunted spot, or whether it's actually happening, that's hard to tell. It has to be, if we don't capture it on camera, I chalk it up to the imagination. We've only had one instance where something happened in a room that caused one of us to sit straight up and look, and it happened to Emily the night she was in David's room. While she was sleeping, she heard something around the camera that caused her to sit right up and just look straight at the camera. She doesn't remember doing it, but something had to have had really made a pretty good noise to warrant that kind of reaction for her just to look straight in that direction. The one that sticks in my mind the most as being a little unnerving and maybe even very creepy is one we caught from the Grapevine wine cellar. We captured this voice, and then a couple of seconds later, Emily makes some kind of noise while she's sleeping, whether it's a murmur, whether it's words, but she seems to be responding to it. And then after she murmurs, we get the voice again. And to this day, we both wonder, did she hear it? Is it a coincidence? Is she responding to it? In either case, to have an EVP, then Emily in her sleep appear to respond to the EVP, that's a little creepy. That's a little strange and very compelling. What started out as a necessity has turned into one of our favorite ways to investigate. It's one thing to see how the spirits will interact and communicate with you when you're face to face with them, when you're standing there, when you want to talk to them, when you've had the equipment out and everything is in investigation mode. It adds a whole other element when you decide to see how they will interact with you when you're at your most vulnerable. And sometimes we capture our most eye-opening evidence long after our eyes have closed.